This is the U-Show Podcast.
Now it's time for our special guest here on the U-Show Podcast, and it's none other than GM of the Year from the Dubuque Fighting Saints, Kalle Larsson. How are we doing, Kalle?
Doing pretty good, thank you. What about yourself?
Doing pretty well. Just an exciting week for the league. Haven't had much great stuff to talk about, but with all these awards, a lot of those coming from your Fighting Saints, it's been fun lately. When I say the term General Manager of the Year, what does that mean to you?
It means to me, I'm very, very proud and humbled that obviously the people voting on this are other GMs, so that makes me really proud. At the same time, I do know and I feel strongly that this is an organizational award. That's my work as GM. It's supported by so many other people. So I'm just proud for our organization that the work we do gets recognized, and it's something that we don't take lightly when other GMs vote on it. But it's an organizational thing that we're really proud of.
Something we've done with all the staffers that we talk to on this podcast. We talk primarily about your main role, which will be as an architect, as you've done so excellently in Dubuque. But we do like to talk about the player before they became the front office person. Mm-hmm. So Kalle Larsson, the player, Swedish born, make your way to the United States to play hockey here. You end up staying here to pursue your hockey career, post-playing career. Mm-hmm. What was the decision process for you like, and why did you make that move to the United States when you did, and why did you stay?
Why did I make that move? I always was a pretty good student. Like, I was a good student in school, and in Sweden, at least at that time, it was really hard combining academics and hockey. I didn't know much about college hockey, but I knew that college sports existed, right? I mean, I knew that much. It's not like it was on TV or anything like that in Sweden, but I knew that college sports existed. I realized the only chance for me to be able to get a college scholarship or something like along those lines would be to move to the U.S. So honestly, like, what I did is, like, I graduated high school, I think, on a Friday. And on Saturday or Sunday, I got on a plane just to try out for hockey teams. I mean, I've said it before, like, it's not like it was before the internet, but the internet wasn't very including of information of anything. So I get on a flight to Chicago, tried out for a bunch of different teams, and got cut pretty much everywhere. And that first year, I played roller hockey instead in Victoria, BC, and I was a decent roller hockey player, actually. I made Team Sweden to play in the World Championships in New York that summer. And in that summer, I met one of the referees at the tournament said, "Hey, you have 1 year left of junior hockey. You want to play in the U.S.?" I was like, "Yeah, for sure I do." Like, so he sent out some emails to different junior teams, and that's how I ended up, in Dayton, in a league that I had never heard about and probably nobody ever heard about since. But so I played in that league, and I was an okay player, not great, not horrible. And again, I just wanted to go to the best school academically I could. Ended up at Lawrence University, which was a great school academically. Was able to play some Division III college hockey. That's really, at the high level, that's basically the story about me as a player. How I ended up here is because I wanted to go to school more than anything.
What's your fondest memory of Hara Arena in Dayton, Ohio?
I don't know if I have any fond memories of Hara Arena. I don't know. I remember one time I was taking a one-timer slap shot, and I didn't just miss the net. I missed the entire glass and broke its share behind the net.
Did you ever have to go down to I know you were the home team. Did you ever have to go to the visiting locker rooms down in the basement with, like, the 70s carpet and, like, the guard dog station outside the window?
I saw them. I never had the pleasure of actually getting dressed in there, but I saw them, and yeah, it's left. I've had nightmares about them.
We talked a little bit with Oliver David, your head coach, about roller hockey and his prowess in the roller hockey field, or rink, you might say. Yep. Have you guys ever strapped on the rollerblades and had any blade duels during your time in Dubuque together?
No, we have not. We probably should, because when he played with Team USA and I was with Sweden for a little bit, I think we ran into each other briefly back then, but we probably should put a roller hockey team together and play. I mean, I haven't played now for, 10 years. I haven't put the rollerblades on. I don't know if anybody plays anymore, but for us average ice hockey players, we could always play roller, you know?
Yeah. Well, you're looking at a roller guy right here. So if you need anything, just let me know.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that.
So you're at Lawrence, you finish up. There is a player jump right up behind the bench after you're done playing and spend some time with Lawrence University at the NCAA Division III level before slowly but surely making your way into the USHL full-time as a scout, then director of scouting, director of player personnel, working with Sioux City, had some great success there as their director of scouting. And then you wind up in Dubuque. Long story short, 3 years ago, 2017, Kalle Larsson becomes the general manager. What was that journey like? And was it just a year after year growing your knowledge and growing your foundation for not only finding players, but putting together the right mixture of players for success?
Yeah, I think so. I think initially when I started coaching at Lawrence, I mean, I think I wanted to be a coach, or I just wanted to work in hockey more than anything. I think I just wasn't sure exactly about what path I was going to take. In Division III, you're not just a coach, you're everything. You're a coach, you're a recruiter, you're an academic advisor, you're equipment manager. You're everything, right? And I really liked being on the road, scouting and recruiting. Obviously, at that level, there's a limit to the caliber of player you're going to be able to get to your program. So I kind of wanted to try some of the strategies we had to get players who work at the next level. So I did feel more like a team builder, a recruiter, a scout than a coach. I did like that part better, although I did like coaching as well, and I think it taught me a lot. But I felt when I was there that being on the road watching hockey is really what I'm passionate about. And when I had an opportunity to move, to go with Luke Strand and Jay Verity to Sioux City, I jumped on it right away. Those guys really opened the door for me, without much of a resume or anything like that in the USHL, and they gave me a shot, and I'm really happy I jumped on it. And I owe a lot to those two guys.
So every architect that builds a structure has a philosophy. Every GM that builds a team has a philosophy. I'm sure it's complicated and it might be hard to put into words, but from your perspective, Kalle, what are your big pillars for building an organization on the ice?
I think you need to be on the same page as the head coach. It's really, really important, because I can want to build a team however I want to, and if the coach don't want to play the players that way, it's not going to work. So my big pillar is to communicate, number one, and to make compromises that works for everyone. I think that the USHL is such a transitional league that, yeah, you can have an idea how you want to play year by year, but if you graduate 19 of your 23 players and you have 4 guys back, then sorry, buddy, but your plan is probably going to have to change how you want to play, because you have 19 new guys on the team. So I would say in general, we want to play fast. We want to play hard, and we want to play skilled. We do a lot of work trying to be at the forefront of what's happening with hockey. Like what worked last year might not work next year, what's coming, what's going. But it really is a communication thing, and it depends on so much on what you return from one year to another. But being on the same page as the coaches, and then the coaches being on the same page as the assistant coaches and with the owners and everything. The communication piece, I think for any organization, the biggest thing is to have good and clear communication, especially I think sometimes if there's something I'm not sure about as a GM, what's going on, if I'm the GM and I'm not 100% sure what's going on, then how does anybody else know what's going on? So rather over communicate than anything else, and then just get players that fit how the coach want to play and what how you envision your team.
Having spoken to a number of your players as well as your head coach about this past season's Dubuque Fighting Saints, every single one of them had the same common thread, that there was strong threads tying this team together from player to player, from player to coach, from coach to GM, from head coach to assistant coaches. From your perspective, Kalle, how much vetting do you do specifically with the players about trying to bring in not only high-end players, but high-end people?
I would like to think that we do as much, if not more, than most teams on that. We put a lot of emphasis on certain characteristics, that work for us. And it's obviously something we've done it, by making mistakes and learning as we go. But there are I think there are players that have success in Dubuque that probably wouldn't be good on other teams in the league, and vice versa. By all means, we pass on some players that are excellent players and that are good players in other teams that just won't work for us. And I think that's the strength of the organization, like that people feel connected. I mean, I think that our ownership group really supports me as a general manager. I mean, I want the coaches to feel that they have my support as a GM, and the players should feel that about the coaching staff. So we do have certain characteristics. Like if you don't have A, B, and C, like it doesn't matter if you're really good at D, E, and F. It just doesn't work for us. You know, we can't squeeze you in here. You know, and then we have a pretty clear strategy on what we need in terms of like an organizational depth chart, a blueprint of how we want to build. And again, it changes year by year, like I said, with the amount of graduating players that move on. But we're pretty strict on that when we draft players of what we need.
This past season that was, and unfortunately the season that wasn't, specifically for teams like yours and Dubuque, teams like Chicago, teams like Waterloo that probably really felt they had a shot at this. I told Oliver David this when we spoke with him. If there was a betting line on the USHL in Vegas and I was a betting man, my money was going on Dubuque from what I'd seen this year. It was an incredible roster. You guys really had a deep team. I talked about how those Lions just seemed to come in waves when you'd watch them play. It was so deep and so talented. For you, how many years out does building a team like that begin? Are there moves? Are there things? Are there draft picks that you think back on and think we wouldn't have had the season we had this year if not for X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I appreciate the nice comments about our team, obviously. And it's we project 3 years out, or that's what we try to do. We have this year's, next year, and 2 years out at all times. And when we draft, we put affiliates in, like when is he ready to come? You know, if this guy goes to school, who takes his spot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we try to plan 3 years ahead, if possible. And was this the Jackson twins, for example? I mean, we drafted them as futures picks, 3 years ago. And now they're here 3 years later. I mean, that has been in the making for a long time, Gaber coming back. I mean, that's a 2-year thing. So for sure, you try to plan ahead. Like I said, three years out is what we plan. And you never know for sure when a player comes. Some guys want to stay at their high school team, their prep team. Some guys want to come right away, but you don't have a spot for them. So it's a lot of moving parts in the USHL, which I think is developing for all of us. We learn a lot by handling with a lot of moving parts. But we plan 3 years out, to answer your question. And this year's team is a result of drafting several seasons of drafting that our scouting staff has done a good job identifying players for us.
In my 3 years of broadcasting in Des Moines, which in coincidence lines up with when you began as a GM in Dubuque, the 2017-18 season, I've never noticed Dubuque making many trades. I'm not sure you made any trades this season. And frankly, with that roster, I understand why you didn't. But is that something that was just kind of happenstance that over the past 3 seasons you haven't made trades, or are you just not someone that likes to play the market that much as a GM?
I think it's a combination of things. I looked at, somebody told me this, we looked at it. We haven't acquired a player from another USHL team in season since trade deadline 16-17. We've added free agents by all means, and North American League players, etc. But it's obviously because we've been fortunate enough to be healthy. If you get injured a lot, then you obviously can't stick to that. I mean, I would say that we do have a philosophy that we want to stick with our players more if we can. If I'm just going to trade my worst player for your worst player, I may as well just hang on to my guy and try to make him better, because I think it's a better. I think it's a better strategy. Now, if you can get better, you're obviously always going to work on making your team better. That's not what I'm saying. But if it's a trade that doesn't really make us better, then I'd rather just stick with what we have. So it's part strategy, and some of it is luck. I mean, we have a great trainer that keeps our players healthy. They're healthy. We don't get injured. We don't have to make trades. It's a lot of things to go into it. Part of it is strategy, and some of it is luck.
So you talked about your relationship with Oliver. How much does that go into the actual hockey things, such as line combinations, such as who's playing on what night? I know you said you guys are on the same page, and that was part of your success. Can you detail what all goes into what different strategies with him?
I try to stay out of Oliver's business as much as I can when it comes to day-to-day decisions. Do we discuss them? Yeah, we do for sure. But I don't want to call him and say, "Hey, this guy has to play tonight." I don't want him to have to worry about me. I mean, you know how it is when somebody's looking over your shoulder. You usually don't feel comfortable and you can't perform at the same level. I don't like when people look over my shoulder. I don't anticipate anybody else look like when I look over there. So we have discussions about things. Oliver and I, we talk on the phone. I mean, all the time. I mean, several times a day, all the time. We're on the phone. I like to try to stay out of the decision making day to day. At least in the heat of the moment. Maybe if something happens where we have a player that we want for the future to become a franchise guy and he only played 3-4 minutes, and say, hey, you know what? Why did that happen? What can you do to make sure that next week he plays a couple more minutes? And usually if it doesn't play a lot, they have a good explanation for it. Hey, we were on the PK a lot. He doesn't PK yet, etc. But it's more a discussion like that. It's never that, hey, you have to do A, B, and C. That's just. I'm the GM for a reason. Oliver's the head coach for a reason. He knows a lot more about day-to-day ice hockey than I do. For me to come in there and try to take my values and say and change that just wouldn't be right. I trust his knowledge about hockey and how to manage the team to win.
It's your 7th year as part of the USHL. How have you seen it change over time, evolved in a good way? What do you think about that?
I think the players in the league are getting better every year. And the American hockey player is getting better every year. I think the brand as the USHL is getting stronger. I mean, that's really it. I mean, like the hockey is getting better in the United States. The USHL is, fortunately, we're at top of that pyramid. And so we're seeing the fruits of the work that so many people do at the grassroots levels here. The American players are getting better. The American players generally want to play in the USHL. So our league keeps getting better.
For kids that are entering with junior eligibility, what does Kalle Larsson look for as a scout, as a GM? Like, what's that number one thing that you're trying to find in a player that you want him to be a part of the Fighting Saints?
I think it depends on what kind of player you are. I really want a player that has a good mirror. Saying that is like, you need to know what your identity is. I mean, what do I want? I mean, I want the best players, and then at the end of the day, you're not going to find more than, I mean, we had 2 Jackson twins, 1 Reese Gaber, they're the first line players, and then we have Halliday and Beck, more guys, but not everybody can be the top guys is what I'm saying. Like if we want you to be you and you need to be the absolute best you. Like if we're talking to a player and say like, hey, what kind of player are you? Oh, I'm an offensive forward. I'm a goal scorer. Well, how many goals did you score last year? 4. It's like, sorry, kid, you're not a goal scorer and it's not my fault. And this is probably not going to work, So, I mean, having players that are honest with themselves, what they are, I think that's really, really important. Knowing what you are as a player, sticking to that and be the best at it. That's what we try to identify.
Kalle, I want to bring it back to kind of a larger question, but frame it within your playing days. You look at different GMs around the league, different head coaches around the league, and you see kind of a myriad of different paths to how they got there. You talked about yours was junior hockey nobody'd heard of, playing NCAA Division III hockey. I think about I was an NCAA Division III hockey player that left the game as a player going, I want to stay in the game. You had the same thing, leaving as an NCAA Division III hockey player saying, I want to stay in the game. What is it about our game that brings people from the NHL, from the USHL, from the NCAA Division III level back into the game that we just can't get enough of it? Can you put a finger on what it is that just keeps people in the game by any way, shape, or form?
I mean, I can only speak for myself. I mean, like, I think it's such a great game. So many good people in it. It's so fascinating. You can learn so much from hockey that you can apply to real life as well. Like, it's a hard question. I really don't know what to say. I mean, for me, it's just like, I'm just obsessed with hockey. I mean, it's just, I mean, like, I've had times in my life where, like, what, maybe I should really start playing golf or something. I need something else to think about at times. I mean, like, I made an effort to get other interests and I don't have any, So like for myself, it's just like, I'm just obsessed with this game. Exactly what that is. If that's a genetic thing or something I learned, I don't know, but it's an obsession. I think it's so many different things about it. I'm sorry. I realize I don't answer your question, but it's because I don't have a good answer for you. I think
no problem. I always just enjoy asking that to people that have established themselves in the game that, you know, for whatever reason made their way back into it. Because I'm always curious, because I mean, I have my own reasons. Chris has his own reasons. Everyone has their own reasons for why we're in the situation we're in right now. But I always like asking. So I appreciate you at least taking a stab at an answer, because I know it's a fairly amoebic answer for sure, and not always that easy to answer.
I thought it was a great answer. You're obsessed with the game. You're passionate. That's why we're all here. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to do. I mean, we're doing stuff we love. So I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It was simple, but it worked.
Yeah.
Got to make sure we give you the floor to thank people that I'm sure you want to thank. You mentioned it earlier. It's an organizational award, GM of the Year, but anybody in specific you want to mention that was a big part of not only this year, but I'm sure has been a big part of all 3 years of you as a GM in Dubuque.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, it might sound cliche. We have an ownership group that's led by Brad Kwong that supported our organizations. They've supported for much longer than I've been here, but supported me personally as well. Like, I can't thank the ownership group that's led by Brad enough. Like, that always gives us what we need to be competitive. You know, I know that's so key for us to keep operating. Also, I mean, I want to thank, like, our fans in Dubuque are unbelievable. They support us all the time. They come out all the time, and everybody. I mean, the support staff, coaches, billets, you know, volunteers. I want to thank everybody. Like, they're all part of, I mean, this award. They're all part of our organization, and they're all part of the USHL, which makes it so great. There's too many people to name some, you know.
Well, Kalle, thanks again for your time. It's we're all going through a crazy time right now, but still, to give us a few minutes, we really do appreciate it. And obviously, another big congratulations on GM of the Year.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate you guys' work. Keep it up. Okay.
This is the U Show Podcast.